Good afternoon, everyone. Ryan Tonking here from the Black Room at T3. How's everybody doing? Hope everybody's having a good day today. And I wanted to jump on and do a video on mental self-appraisal, which is something that has been really important to me. It made the difference in my trading today because it wasn't a really bad start to the open, but there was a couple things that took me out of the game, and I found myself in a position where I find myself more often than I would like, but I found myself in a position where I was at a crossroads in my P&L, where I was either going to get control over my decision-making process and what I was going to do today as far as trading, or I was going to enter into a state where the market was going to control my decision-making process, and those days are extremely detrimental for my P&L, and those are the days that would happen often when I was a new trader, and that is the number one thing that I guard against today as a successful trader. Okay, so that the crossroads that I come to, I still come to that today. I still come to a crossroads like that, but the difference is that I have a system of tools in place to deal with my thought process when I start to get a little out of sorts. Okay, so we're going to take a look at, like I said in the description, we're going to take a look at the trades that I took today, and I'll go over exactly what went on as far as when I did the self-appraisal and when things started to go a little bit questionable. Okay, so here are the trades that I took today. There's mainly two trades. This K was a order mishap when I was looking at this, the K trade. But these are the three trades that I took today. Okay, I took the SCHW at the open. I then took the toll, which I got out roughly break even, and then I took the SJM later in the day. Okay, so these are the three trades that we're going to be focusing in on. All right, so let's start with the SCHW. Okay, and I'm going to throw my markers on here to help us walk through this process. And okay, so here's the open. Took this right at the open. Let me jump back to a 1 minute chart here. This was a gap down. I liked the AMTD today, which I had a call on, but then it didn't end up triggering, so I ended up canceling it. And then I looked at the SCHW, and we were gapping just under this base. We did still have support to the left here, which was 49.36. But we set up pretty nicely on the 1 minute. I like this shock value where we gapped under this base. We had a couple green bars here, so I did like this as a short. I did know that it did have some support to the left to deal with here. Okay, so let's look at where this set up, and remember that support area of 49.36, I believe it was. Okay, so let's go back to the open. Just give me a second here. Okay, here we are. Okay. So I was focused on the AMTD, and there was an entry on the SCHW under the doji bars, low, stop, high of the day, which was an entry. Sorry, just had to, I don't know if you guys heard that or not, but I have an alarm that goes off 5 minutes before the close. Make sure I don't get stuck in a position. But, okay, so here was the entry. There was a 1 minute bars short, under low of the day, stop high of the day. I didn't see that at the time it triggered. I think it was okay to take, but we got this bottoming tail, we got this push higher, and then we got this topping tail, and then I looked to short this here, which was not as good of an entry as this 1 minute, but the other brokers started to roll over, and I was looking to play this short, and this still had 1R to 49.36 area here. So I initiated a short position here under this bottoming tail, stop above this topping tail. We got a nice rollover here, was up 1R, and I missed the exit, right? Now, on the target one, in the right at the open, I give this a little bit more credence because things tend to move a little bit faster. But target one, I normally like to take more than 1R. But as we mentioned before, this was a drop, a wide range bar, and a quick move into this prior pivot on the daily chart here. So this was target one. Now, this was a little bit of a late entry. It would have been a really nice target one if I took it under the 1 minute bars low, stop high of the day, which was the real entry, 25-cent stop, and went roughly 2 Rs, right? But I did get this a little bit late. We had a nice drop here, and I missed the target. And as soon as it bounced here, it bounced very quickly. We got this green bar. And so then I had a judgment call whether or not I was going to kill this over the base, roughly break even, or whether I was going to hold. And I decided to hold because I felt like this could easily shake out higher and then continue lower, which it did kind of do, but it stopped me out here. Okay, so that was the first trade. I'm okay with the entry pattern. I'm okay with where the stop was. What I wasn't okay at the time was that in a matter of a couple minutes, this was up 1R, and I missed the exit. So I wasn't thrilled about that, to say the least, okay? I knew that I was mentally a little bit frustrated. Nothing major, but a little bit frustrated. And I took a full stop on this. Okay, and at the same time, there was another stock that was called the JILL, and it was on an uptick, and I wasn't able to get filled, okay? So there was another entry called in the room on or another stock play called in the room on the JILL, and I wasn't able to get filled on that, which got to a really nice target one. So at the time, I wasn't able to get filled on a stock that got to a really nice target one. I was able to get filled on the SCHW, but I missed the exit to the target one. So now I have 2 trades that should be open. One I wasn't able to get filled on, and both of them got to a target one. So I was kind of starting to feel like this should have been a nice morning, nice open, and here I am down an R. Okay? So after that, I started looking at some longs. Market started looking higher, and I don't see any setups. I don't see anything that I'm looking at, or nothing that I'm looking at is setting up really nicely, and I'm a little bit frustrated. Some more time is going by, and I'm starting to get even more antsy to take a trade, okay? Now, in the moment, there's a battle going on in my mind trying to stay focused and trying to look for the next trade. Okay, so this is what happens. The toll, which was one of my favorite gap ups today, as far as the brokerage stocks, there was the toll and the DHI, which I think was a lot nicer daily chart, but the toll was the one that was reporting, so I like the toll. Okay, so I think there was an entry maybe here over this bottoming tail once we opened. This bar of the stock wasn't open. There was an entry here. This 1 minute buy setup was pretty tough. I was looking to play this long if this broke over the high of the day, which it did not. It came in, it retested this prior pivot here, and I'm looking at this, okay? Now, this is just me personally. This 1 minute buy setup is too aggressive for me to play, this 1 minute buy setup. Okay? It's too aggressive for me to play. Why is it too aggressive? Well, it has too much that's wrong with it. One is, and I was watching this, it did a small breakout failure here. You gotta, if you were watching this, you would have saw the small breakout failure here where it broke by a couple of pennies, and then we got a bearish pullback here. 100% retracement. Bearish pullback started with wide range bars and came from a breakout failure / equal high, so it wasn't a higher high. All right, so this buy setup for me was not playable. But I was starting to feel like I was itching to take a trade. I didn't want to miss out on anything. I was looking to play this long if it broke the high of the day. It pulled in, so now it has even better R to R. This could be a really nice winner, and I decided to enter in long on the 1 minute buy setup as the moving average comes up to price there. Okay? Now, this is what's really critical about, and this took me a while to do, but this is what's really critical about doing a self-appraisal and being aware of what mental state you're in throughout the day. And what I can tell you is that as soon as I entered into this TOL, a feeling came over me, which was I knew that I was taking a trade that was out of strategy. It wasn't good enough for me to play, and I knew that the only motivation for me, the only reason being to take this trade was this could possibly work and make up for the loser that I just had, and also the other trade that I missed out on. That was my thought process. Now, my thought process when I shorted the SCHW was, this is a pattern that I'm familiar with, and so I'm going to enter into the position, right? See the difference between that? And so when I entered into this position, I knew it was based on emotions. And as soon as I entered that position, now I'm at this crossroads where really my P&L could go either way. Where I'm either going to make a conscious decision to take back control over my mental state, or I'm going to stick with a trade that I'm not familiar with, and it would have stopped out. Right? Now, win or loss, I don't know what the TOL would have done here, but win or loss, even if this was a winning trade, it still would have justified the poor decision that I made, which is even more dangerous than me just taking one stop right away. Okay? But the point that I'm making here is that at this moment, my P&L could have gone either way. It could have gone into I could have compounded losses, or I had a decision to make here, which is, am I going to exit this position, which I ended up exiting the position break even? Am I going to exit the position and take a break and step away so I can clear my head, or am I going to act like, let's just see what happens, and I don't really have a pattern that I'm familiar with, I don't have an edge right now, but it could win, and that's the truth. This could be a profitable trade. I don't have an edge here, but it could be a profitable trade, right? And so what I did was I trailed this break even, and I took a break. That's what happened. I knew that I had to go on the mic later on, and when I came on the mic, I said, listen, I'm doing scanning. That's what I'm going to do. As I'm getting a little bit recentered here, I told the members of the room the 2 trades that I took and kind of where I was at mentally, and I did some scanning to refocus myself, right? But the key thing is, 1, having a mental awareness of where I am throughout the day, taking that self-appraisal, and then taking action after the self-appraisal, right? So that was the TOL. So after that, I had a couple things that that I ended up passing on, that ended up working really nicely. But I made a decision that I'm going to stick to my plan. I'm going to stick to the strategy at hand, and I'm going to wait for a really good setup, right? A couple things I passed on was this FR 5-minute sell setup. That worked really nicely. I mentioned the EDU 5-minute sell setup right here. Right, EDU 5-minute sell setup, did a nice retest here, declining 20 MA. Daily charts very weak on the EDU, and this worked really nice too, right? Both of these I ended up passing on. There were some issues with them, right? Nice daily chart on the EDU. So I took a break during lunch, and then what happened was I told myself I was willing to take one more trade, and the SJM came up on the SJM, which I passed on some of these 5-minute sell setups. Whoops, SJM. Okay, and the SJM set up a 5-minute sell setup right here at the declining 20 MA, which triggered really quickly. I was actually doing some scanning, but we were at this prior support, which becomes resistance, 5-minute sell setup. I ended up taking this with a little bit of the smaller size, and we ended up retesting. I then put numbers out in the room here for this short, stop above here, and because I didn't have time before when this sell setup triggered out of nowhere, but this was a much better entry, the numbers that I put out in the room once we got this green bar, and I was able to take advantage of this move lower on the SJM, right, which is a nice 5-minute sell setup. We had this retest, the rollover, and it was the second time I had a order mishap here. I tried to cover 200 shares, and I ended up shorting a additional 200 shares. So I had an order mishap, which I probably lost like, I don't know, maybe a third of an hour on or something. But anyway, ended up exiting all of that. And then, again, the runner position, I was on the mic. We were talking about something I was scanning, and I was trailing 5-minute bar by bar and ended up missing this 5-minute bar's close to trail here. So I just trailed it over the previous 5-minute bar by bar here. But it ended up being a pretty nice trade. I mean, it was roughly about 2.5 hours for me. I traded $200 risk. Now, I will be honest with you, this helped having a nice winner at the end of the day. But what I told people in the morning when I was on the mic was, I can easily recover from a 1-hour loss, which is what happened today. It doesn't always happen, but I can easily recover from a 1-hour loss. In a slow time of the year, it's very difficult for me to recover from a 3-hour loss in the morning out of the gates. And where my trading was going, because I'm a human, because I make mistakes, but where my trading was going that's the direction it was going in. Once I took the toll trade that was out of strategy, the direction my trading was going was, we're going to take a couple losses here at the open. Why? Because we're not mentally in it. And it was only the self-appraisal, and then after the self-appraisal, taking actions on the findings of the self-appraisal. The self-appraisal, the findings resulted in, Ryan, you are at a point here where you're either going to continue to trade out of strategy, continue to trade aggressively, continue to trade so you feel better, or you're going to take a break and you're going to recenter yourself and you're going to focus in on what does your strategy say. Right? So, all in all, the self-appraisal was the turning point in my trading this morning. Right? And I think that, I know for me, when I started trading, and still to this day, believe me, that was not an easy process. It was not an easy process at all. But it is so important to me as a trader today that I remain in control of my decision-making process and don't allow my emotions and the market to dictate what I do. All right? So hopefully this is helpful. Let me know if you guys have any questions. As always, stay in process, and I will talk to you guys soon. Hope you guys have a great rest of your day.